Hello, hi everybody, and welcome to our 12 Christmas tips. And we're going to show you today, of course, our 12 Christmas cooking tips to help you get the most out of your kitchens and your recipes this Christmas. So my name is Alice, I'm a home economist at Smeg.
And I'm Zara, I'm also a home economist at Smeg as well.
And we, as I say, we are going to help you get the most out of your kitchens and give you some really nice tips and tricks for an easy and stress-free Christmas. So we're here in the Smeg kitchen today. We've got lots of tasty treats. Unfortunately, you can't taste them with us, but you'll be able to see what we can do, and they're nice and easy to replicate at home. So you should find these simple, easy to follow, and we have got all of the recipes on our website too. So if you find that you either want to share these with somebody or you want to recap what we've gone through, they'll all be there for you to follow along with. So we're going to start off today with some easy, simple and delicious Christmas starters. And Zara's going to talk us through what we're doing for these.
So we're going to start off with a canapé, which is super easy to prepare before the day or equally can be done after. We're all about simplicity. We want you guys to have a stress-free Christmas day, and part of that is pre-preparing and cutting time. So we've got a turkey, cranberry and stuffing sausage roll or a pastry puff. It's super easy. You can put any leftovers in here. You can put your cranberry sauce, which you haven't used up on Christmas Day, your stuffing, anything you want within here. Mix it all together. I've actually not followed any measurements, but we do have a recipe on our website, so you can follow those if you're not very confident. And then I've just used some puff pastry, which has been in the freezer. We've defrosted it, and it's here ready to use. So I've simply just cut my pastry in half. We've got some prepared here, and then I'm just going to spoon on some filling. So super easy.
I really like this recipe because if you've got one of those box packets of stuffing, and I don't know about you, but I've always got one in the cupboard. It's always there. I think they are very inexpensive from the supermarket, so it's quite nice. You can just throw it in and it adds so much flavour and it instantly feels festive.
Yeah, we literally prepared this in 5 minutes yesterday. It's just been kept in the fridge overnight. We've also done some events in London where we prepared it the week before and frozen it, and it defrosted really nicely as well. So if you were thinking about Christmas Day or you want some snacks ready for the Christmas week, you could prepare these now and they'd be perfect.
They would be, absolutely.
So I'm just rolling that pastry over, and I'm going to use a fork to crimp the edges. Really easy.
And while we are doing these with turkey now, we also have some really tasty sausage roll recipes on the Smeg website. I think the beauty of making sausage rolls or anything in puff pastry, especially when it's bought puff pastry, is that it's so easy to do, but it looks really effective. It tastes even better, and it's so quick to do because all you have to do is fill it, pop it in the oven, and you're done.
And who doesn't like puff pastry?
Absolutely.
So I'm just going to top with some nigella seeds. You can literally use whatever you like. Again, as we've been saying, you can throw anything into this and it tastes absolutely delicious. So I've got some I prepared earlier over here. One of the tips I would say is when preparing, when you're doing your egg wash, ensure to egg wash the sides as well, just so you don't have any spillages. And hopefully that should be all good. So as you can see, I'm on a glass tray here. This is because we won't just be putting it in any oven. Obviously, you can put them in a normal oven. They should take about 25 to 30 minutes, depending on how brown you like them. But we're going to be using a combination microwave. So I'm just going to pop them in, and then we'll show you some tips. So we've had this microwave preheating just there. So I'm just going to press start. One thing I'd say about combination microwave cooking, a lot of people have an appliance like this in their home. They either use the microwave or the oven. Hardly anybody uses it together, and that's really where the magic comes alive. So as you can see, I popped that in and we've got it all preset. We've had to preheat this because a combination microwave won't actually work until the oven is preheated, so it doesn't microwave your food without heating it in the oven cavity. Just a few tips and tricks when it comes to microwave cooking, because a lot of people find it quite overwhelming. I did too. So it's quite easy when you learn a few rules. So firstly, I said over there that we put our sausage, puffs in usually at about 25 to 30 minutes. I put it in an oven at 180 degrees and I just let it cook. Christmas Day can be quite stressful and we want to cut some time. So this is where this appliance comes in. We want to keep the temperature the same, so I've left it at 180 degrees. I've halved the time, so it really does make a huge difference. And I've decided the wattage. Now, this is the overwhelming part. When it comes to wattage, where do you start? Firstly, we're just going to give you some examples. So if I had something like a fish, fillet of fish, it would be a lower density food. So I'm going to go for a lower wattage, something like 100 watts. If I had a jacket potato, that's a high density food. It's quite heavy. So I'd go for the highest wattage possible. Here I've got puff pastry and I've got meat inside. Puff pastry isn't something I'd normally microwave because it would go soggy. But here we're going to show you with the combination technology that won't happen. And because I've got the meat in there too, I'm going to go for a medium wattage of 300 watts. So half the time, same temperature, and decide the wattage. So again, think about that fillet of fish and think about that jacket potato, and it really, really will make a difference. So yes, we're going to leave that to it, and we're going to think about another starter or canapé for you guys to prepare on the day. So here we have got caramelized onion and cheddar tartlets. Now, these have been an absolute favourite in the Smeg office this week.
They really have.
We cooked an event yesterday for quite a few employees, and we made these canapés to start, and they have been an absolute hit. So super easy, and we're going to tell you our secret. They look quite complicated. I'm just going to show you what they look like when they're prepared. They look quite complicated, but actually they're so super easy. I'm going to pop those there. We're going to just prepare some with you today. All you need is a muffin tin. Everyone has one of those in their cupboard. And then here's my big secret. We're going to be using white bread. Yes, white bread. So inexpensive. Everyone's got them in the cupboard. Mm-hmm. This is something you can rustle up. It looks amazing, but it really is minimal effort, and they are absolutely delicious. So I've just cut these out with a cookie cutter. Perfect size to fit in my muffin tin. If you haven't got the right size, use a glass or use a mug, anything really. I'm going to butter the bases, which I've already done, and I'm just going to place them into my muffin tin. I've preheated my oven. Again, anything goes, but I've preheated it to 180 degrees. I'm going to literally pop them in for 10 minutes and they're done. So it's great if you've got a busy family and you just need to rustle something up last minute. So on the hob here, I've caramelized some red onions and some chestnut mushrooms, and I've just added a little bit of brown sugar. Again, easy. You can use anything in your fridge. So if you just have red onions, that also works too. I'm just going to literally spoon some of my caramelized mixture onto my cut out bread circles, and I'm just going to show you a couple so we can get them in.
I suppose even if you've got white onions as well, it would work, wouldn't it?
Anything. You can add a bit of garlic, lots of seasoning, and then I'm using mature cheddar. Sorry, excuse me. And I'm just going to pop that on top. Again, as messy as you like. It can just cover completely, and it's going to act as the glue to hold the canapé together.
I feel like at Christmas we all have excess cheese. We've all got so much cheese lying around, and I don't know about you, but it sits in the fridge. I will eat some, but maybe not get through all of it. So this is the perfect way to use it up, whether it's cheddar or something a little bit stronger.
It works with blue cheese, it works with mozzarella, parmesan, anything. Again, all you need is onion, white bread, a bit of cheese, and it looks great. We've also garnished with some thyme. It literally takes 10 minutes, and they freeze great as well. So no excuses.
And the bread can be stale as well. So if you've got a loaf of bread that perhaps is past its best, not too past, but if it's on the dry side, it works really well because you can just cut them straight out. So why not utilize it instead of throwing it away? Now, while we're on the topic of starters and canapes, we have got a fantastic option. This was vegetarian, very, very easy to prepare. And we have done another one very recently. We actually, we did a live version of this in London, which was fantastic. And there were tasters. So hopefully you can create these at home if you fancy having a taste. But we did some delicious marmalade and chili pork belly bites.
They were so good.
Oh, they were, weren't they? And again, the recipe is going to be on the website. I think we're getting a link popped in the chat shortly. But they're so simple to prepare. But they use a cooking function that we have on every Smeg oven. So if you do have a Smeg oven at home, chances are it will have a function called turbo. Now, this is every element on all at the same time, which sounds quite intense. And as the name goes, turbo, it is quite an intense function. It's designed to essentially mimic the effect of rotisserie cooking. So with rotisserie cooking, of course, you get lovely, juicy results because the rotisserie function keeps all of those juices contained into the meat. Whereas with the turbo function, it offers an intense hit of heat that acts as if it's sealing the meat on the hob. So whereas if you were doing something like beef, for example, you would perhaps sear first on the hob to create that lovely sealed brown layer to keep it nice and juicy and tender. In the oven, this function does it for us. So with the pork, it keeps it juicy, it keeps it crispy on the outside, and it means we can have a really beautiful, tender piece of pork belly that is lovely and crispy, as I say, but still nice and soft and tender. So for the full recipe, please have a look on the website. And if you do have that function, it's a great one to utilise when cooking meat, which brings me on to my next tip, because of course it is Christmas. Chances are you might be cooking a turkey, you might not be. I know quite a few people that haven't actually gone down the turkey route this year. I think you're included, aren't you?
Yeah, I think we're going for goose this year.
You know, I know somebody's doing beef. Not everybody wants to eat turkey. Oh, somebody else we spoke to the other day is doing lamb. Yeah. So whatever meat it is that you're cooking, utilise this turbo function. Pop it on for the first 20 minutes of cooking to get that really intense sear on your meat, trap in those juices, and then turn it down to our classic fan function, which is circular, which we'll have a chat a bit more about later. But it's a great way of getting more flavour and a juicier result to your meat. It's really, really tasty. Now, I've been talking about the turkey, and I am actually going to cook one for you today. I'm going to do it in a slightly different way that I've just been telling you about, because behind me here, I've got a very special oven. And because we are on a slight time limit, we don't quite have the time to cook a full turkey. I'm going to be doing this with a chicken. So I am first of all going to grab some stock, because this is all part of the tip. So I'm just adding a little bit of boiling water into it. You don't need a lot of stock because it's just a small amount. My chicken is actually sitting upside down, if you see here. And this is exactly what I would be doing with my turkey. And I'm going to fill the base of this with my stock. And the reason for this is cooking it upside down, breast side down, is going to keep the part that usually dries out nice and tender and juicy. Because I find one of the main arguments for people not enjoying turkey at Christmas because it's dry. So why not take away that risk factor of having that dry turkey? You cook it upside down, cooked in stock, and then when it's halfway through, flip it over. You can top with bacon if you like and allow it to crisp up on the other side. And that means it will also cook a bit more evenly too. So I'm going to put this in the oven behind me here. Now, keep in mind, this is going to be cold, this completely cold oven. And I mentioned that this is called an Omni Chef. This lovely little appliance here is actually 3-in-1. So this is very special. And if you already have this at home, I'm sure you will already know about this because it's fantastic. But if you haven't seen this before, this is quite the revolution for us at Smeg. This appliance is going to cook this chicken in just 30 minutes. Incredibly fast. And all I need to put in is the weight. So I'm using a smart cooking program, which is going to talk me through. I'm selecting chicken and I'm going into roast chicken. And this one is only 1.2 kilograms. If it was 1.3, 4, 5, I can just amend that in this little slider section here. I'm going to give that a tick and it's going to use oven, microwave, and steam to cook it in just 30 minutes. Now, because it's using steam, it will ask for water. So I'm popping this out here, which is my little drinking straw, as I like to call it, and I'm going to fill it up. So I've got a jug of water here. It's requesting 600 millilitres of water, and it's just going to take that up into the cavity behind here to start steaming. Now, as Zara was mentioning earlier, whenever microwaves are involved, I think there's a bit of a stigma around microwaves because, as you said, you'd never dream of microwaving raw pastry. Equally, I feel like we'd never dream of microwaving a raw chicken. But when it's in combination with oven technology, all it adds is the speed. So you still get the beautiful crispy results and the speed of having a microwave. And then the steam comes in to add moisture back in. Because with microwaves, it does remove some of the moisture of whatever it is that you're cooking. So that's why you might find if you're reheating food just with a microwave function, it's a little bit drier than if you were perhaps doing it in the oven. Now, that's taken in the water. I press tick to complete, and it's happy. And that's just going to take 30 minutes to cook. So the turkey is one of my favourite parts. I think it's very involved, but once it's in, and it does its own thing. When it comes to coming out of the oven, I love planning ahead. I put my chicken, turkey, beef, whatever it is I'm cooking, I get it in quite ahead of time. It's actually a bit of a running joke. But I think resting is so important. The difference between resting or not resting is actually quite huge. Allow your meat to rest. It won't go cold, I promise. The key is to wrap it up. So pop a layer of foil over the top of it, then coat it with tea towels just to really, really hold in that heat. But more importantly, I think, turn it upside down while it's resting. And that way, the juices, instead of kind of falling down into the bowl or the dish that you are using, they fall straight into that part that usually dries out. So you get a really delicious and juicy turkey. Now, a lot of people say you are actually meant to rest it for the same length of time that you cook it for, which in our case here with this chicken, only 30 minutes. But I would recommend with your turkey at least an hour, which again, I know if somebody isn't used to resting their meat, an hour sounds like quite a long time, and you think it.
But it does make such a difference.
It does
even
make such a difference
when it comes to carving. So much easier.
So much easier, and you don't have all the mess of the juices going everywhere because they're just dying to escape. So give it that time. I promise it won't go cold, and it will be delicious. Now, speaking of juices, another one of my favourite parts. I just think every part of Christmas dinner is fantastic, actually. But gravy is my job at home.
This is the gravy queen.
Thank you for saying so. I love making gravy, and especially when we're using stock in the bottom of the dish that we're cooking it in. So when we're making that turkey, you get even more juices. So I like to make my gravy from scratch using those juices that we collect. And of course, resting, it's not going to absorb all of those juices that are left behind. So I like to take some of them and create my gravy. And the best part, I think, about baking in these Smeg ovens here is that the baking trays actually connect to the induction hobs. So, of course, if you've got a gas hob, you can pop your baking tray on and use all of the rings. But I know that when I first got my induction hob, I thought, oh, that's such a shame because I love making gravy straight in the pan, utilising all of those lovely juices. And I didn't realise until I tried it. Fantastic. And because it's metal, of course, you can just whisk straight in. So it's a really nice way of minimising your washing up and making the most of all of the flavours. It's just fantastic.
Alice, you really do love making the most of the flavours, don't you? When we cook in the kitchen here at Smeg, she saves all the juices and she freezes them ready for when she makes gravy.
I don't know if we're sharing those things, Zara. Well, actually, funnily enough, that does actually bring me on to my next tip, so thank you. It is to save things like not only the juices of the meats, but also your cooking water. So if you're boiling broccoli, if you're boiling carrots, your sprouts, for example, save that water. Don't tip them down the sink because you'll notice that your carrots, your water will be orange, your broccoli water will be green. And I think to myself, all of that flavour, all of those lovely nutrients, they would just be going to waste. And in your gravy, you need water to get it more volume and to eke it out. So definitely save that water and utilise that for extra flavour. Now, in addition to that, I'm going to go one step further and say save your peelings too. Now, this does sound a little bit rogue, but when you're peeling your veg, just put them in a bowl. Even if you've got the tops on your parsnips, even if they've got, a little bit of grit on them, it's absolutely fine. Boil them down. So pop in a good amount of salt, pop in all of your vegetable peelings that you've got, any offcuts, put them in a big pan on the hob and cook them with boiling water, but you can just leave it on a simmer for a couple of hours and you can make your own stock. And again, extracting all of those nutrients from the peelings, from the leftover veg, and adding even more flavour into your own gravy. And I think it's so economical.
Yeah, honestly. And you have all the resources there, so why not make it?
Exactly. So give it a try. I know it sounds like a lot of extra effort, but they would be going in the bin anyway, and all you have to do is pop them in a pan and make your own stock, and I think it's delicious. If you want to go one step further, you can save the carcass of your turkey or whatever meat it is that you're cooking and create your own meat stock too. So fantastic. I think make the most of everything that you've got in the kitchen at Christmas. I know there's a lot going on, but I always struggle to put the carcass somewhere. I think, I don't really want to put it in the bin.
Yeah.
Where do I put it? Cook with it. Utilize it.
You can freeze it and then cook with it.
Absolutely, as well. Zara. Yeah, and hopefully you'll be clearing out the freezer at Christmas anyway, because you have so much, so much being stored in the freezer that you can really, really utilize it. So why not give it a try?
Definitely. So, are we ready to move on to the next tip?
I think so.
I'm going to head over to the other station to talk about roast potatoes. Now, we've talked about the turkey, we've talked about the gravy and canapes. I personally think that the roast potatoes are the most important part of a roast. Now, that might be a little bit controversial, but yeah. One thing I am going to talk about, obviously, we can parboil our potatoes on the hob. But another thing which I'd advise doing, if you have the appliances to do so, or if you're looking at getting the appliances to do so, is steaming. When you steam, you get a really great texture and you have a really intense flavour and you retain all the nutrients. So it is a win-win. We have our built-in steam ovens. We have a full steam, or we have the combination, or we have the option to have a countertop steam oven. This is great for someone that doesn't want to make the commitment to go to a full steam oven, but it's a great way to test out and try. I hadn't cooked much with steam before. I tried this little appliance out, and I absolutely love it now. I wouldn't go back. This is our countertop steam oven. It's a 10-in-1, so it does lots of different things. It can be used for everything, and I have one at home, and I really do love it. We have a menu here to tell you how to use it, and then here is how you add the water, so it doesn't need to be plumbed in, and it only works off a 13-amp connection, so it's super, super easy. As a part of this countertop steam oven, you have obviously a tray that I've got in the oven now roasting my potatoes, and then a perforated tray here. So previously, before whacking the heat up on this oven and putting the potatoes into roast, I steamed them using this perforated tray. When it comes to steaming, I washed my potatoes and I peeled them as I usually would, chopped them up into nice even sizes, and then I popped them in my steam oven at 100 degrees for the same amount of time as I would do if it was on the hob. We want to kind of be able to put a knife in, but not too much because we don't want it all mushy inside. I've then taken them out the steam oven and I've allowed them to dry steam themselves, giving them the really fluffy texture within, and I've given them a bit of a shake. I don't know about you guys, but I love a crispy potato, so give it a good shake, let them steam dry. A little tip as well, add a bit of flour, add a bit of corn flour, salt and pepper, and really give them a shake because we want it nice and crispy. So I've got my potatoes in here, as you can see. I'm just going to open this door so you can see. They are bubbling away. I'm going to give them a little bit more time, so I'm just going to shut that door here. When it comes to making roast potatoes, I feel like everyone has their own way. So hopefully I can give you some tips to enhance your way of making the roast potatoes without changing the way that you do it. First and foremost, a lot of people don't know a secret to amazing roast potato is the actual potato type that you choose. We want a really starchy potato, for example, Maris Pipers, and that's what we've used here today. The more starchy, the fluffier the internal texture and the nice and crispy exterior as well, which I actually didn't know until I'd really tested and tried what roast potatoes works, and it really does make a difference. Sorry. When it comes to parboiling our potatoes on the hob, because it's a root vegetable, we want to put all of our potatoes into a cold pot and allow it to come up to the boil altogether. This gives it a really even cook, and it allows all the potatoes to be the same parboiled way through as each other. It just means that we don't have some really mushy potatoes and some that are quite tender. Then I usually, once I've parboiled them, again, let them steam dry, give them a shake, add a bit of flour, and then I will add a little bit of oil, a little bit of salt and pepper as well. Another thing is that we want to put our pan into our oven with a bit of fat. Again, you can use any fat. So if you're a vegetarian, olive oil, or if you're not, you can use an animal fat. And this can really be a great opportunity to enhance the flavour. So we've used some goose fat in here. We've also put some rosemary and some garlic. Again, you can do as you please with this, and you can really spice up those roast potatoes. So yeah, we've popped them in there. We want that heat to be really, really hot, and we've put the oil in there to preheat. So when I put the potatoes in, you hear that fizz, which is exactly what we did. So we're just going to let these cook along, and then you guys can see them at the end. But hopefully you can use some of those tips and they'll turn out great. Another thing I wanted to talk to you guys about was oven capacity. So as you can see here, I will talk to you guys about what's in here in a minute. Our ovens are quite large, and we really want you guys to maximize capacity. When it comes to cooking on Christmas Day, you're going to have loads of different dishes. It's probably a really busy time and loads of people. So we're going to really need to make use of the space that we have. In our Smeg ovens, we've tried and tested. You can fit a 36-pound turkey and a tray of roast potatoes, which personally, I think is really important. Another great thing about our Smeg ovens is that we have 5 shelf positions, as I've shown you here. However, a lot of people would be quite worried about using all 5 shelf positions because of the contaminations of flavors and smells. But I'm here to tell you that you don't have to worry with a Smeg oven. We have got a function that Alice referred to earlier called circulaire. And I don't know if you guys can see, but at the back of my oven here, I've got a fan. That fan is pulling in all of the air from inside the oven, and it's cleaning it, and it's bringing out the sides. So there is no cross-transference of flavors and smells. That essentially means I can use every single shelf position, and I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. You can have your nut roast in there at the same time as your turkey. It wouldn't matter because it's being cleaned. You can really maximize capacity. If you've got fussy eaters, again, it doesn't matter. And also, if you have a dessert that needs slightly longer to cook, you can get that in cooking as well. So you really can maximize the amount of space, and hopefully you can get everything cooked in time. I'm just going to grab a pair of oven gloves, and I'm going to show you one more thing. We have an accessory within our ovens which comes in really, really handy, especially at times like Christmas when it comes to basting our turkey. So if I pull out my tray here, the tray actually comes out towards me, and they are on something called telescopic rails. Now we do partially extractable and then fully as well, so they come all the way out. This is great as well if you have a range cooker. You can pop these on any shelf position. They can come on and off as you please, and it means that I can baste my turkey without really hurting my back and leaning right down on the floor, especially if you've got a hot oven. It's a great alternative. These can go on all of the shelf positions if you fancy. You can just purchase these online as an accessory, and it does make the overall experience quite nice. So that is an additional accessory there. But yes, as you can see, massive ovens, huge capacity, and we really want you to make good use of those. So as you can see in here, I have a muffin tin preheating. I'm going to talk to you guys about Yorkshire puddings. Again, after roast potatoes, these could be my favourite part to a roast. These are quite easy to get wrong, and there are a few mistakes that a lot of people make. So I'm going to show you how to make a great batter and how hopefully we can get a really brilliant result. So firstly, our Yorkshire pudding batter all works in volumes. In here, I've got some plain flour, I've got some eggs, and I've got some milk. I want the same amount of plain flour as to eggs. And then I'm using the milk to get the viscosity that I'd like. When it comes to choosing the flour, we want a plain flour instead of a self-raising flour, because the raising agents will not make the Yorkshire puddings, they'll make muffins instead. So So if you've ever gone wrong in that respect, that might be why. We want room temperature eggs, and we want to mix in with the flour. You're just going to create kind of a sort of paste. Then I'm slowly going to add my milk. We're going to add a little bit at a time to prevent as many lumps as possible. Give that a really, really good mix. We're looking for the consistency of double cream. We want it to be able to coat the back of the spoon, not like pancake mix, but double cream. We can, again, use any leftover batter for pancakes by just adding a bit more milk. Again, add a bit of seasoning as well. That is your basic recipe. We've got a recipe online that will be in the chat, and that's one we put together, trialed and tested, so you guys can use that. One thing about the batter, which is really important, is that it needs to rest. We're using flour, so we're using the gluten in the flour, and we need it to rest. I've made this 3 hours before, but with Yorkshire pudding batter, you can make it the day before. You know, put it in the fridge, let it rest in there. One really important thing is make sure it comes back to room temperature before using it. Otherwise, you're not going to get that really, really great rise. So yes, again, make sure it comes back to room temperature, because if you take it out the fridge, it's not going to give you that brilliant rise. You can freeze these. You can freeze the Yorkshire puddings when they're cooked as well. They freeze really well. So in terms of time saving, Christmas can be a really busy time of year. So get these pre-made and they'll stay exactly the same, and they'll look really, really good. One thing about storage, if we do make these the day before, put a piece of cling film and make sure it actually touches the top of our batter. You might see a bit of a watery layer on the next day. That's absolutely fine. Just give it a mix in. Don't be off put. We had that this morning, so we just gave it a good mix. And now this is lovely and relaxed. So we're going to use that now. One thing about Yorkshire puddings is they thrive off a high heat. I've preheated my oven here to 220 degrees. We've got a muffin tin in there with some oil within. We want it to be really nice and hot, so it almost sizzles when I pour in the batter. So I'm going to pop this here. You have to act quite fast, so hopefully you can see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to put it straight back in, and we're not going to open the door. It doesn't necessarily matter what fat you use. We've used olive oil here, but you can use vegetable fat. You can use literally any type of fat that you like. You can hear it sizzling there. That's what we're looking for. One thing I would say as well, the deeper the muffin tin, the better. So we haven't got a hugely deep one today, but it'll work the same. Again, this is the same recipe for things like toad in the hole. So if you've got any pigs and blankets left over, I reckon a toad in the hole with a bit of bacon would be quite nice.
Or pancakes for dessert as well.
Yeah, exactly. Easy to do as well if you're on Boxing Day and you don't want to do any cooking. Just going to pop that there. I'm going to put these back in. It's really nice and warm over here as well from the really hot oven. So I'm just going to pop this back in without spilling it, hopefully.
And the rise on these, Zara absolutely makes the best Yorkshire puddings. They go crazy. And it is having an oven that can go up to that high temperature that's so important, isn't it?
It is. So we're going to make sure not to open that door. It's tempting, but that's how we lose the rise. But yeah, so that's how you make the Yorkshire puddings. Hopefully they turn out and they behave. Talking about hot heat and high heat, we're going to hand over to Alice and we're going to move on to something quite exciting.
Thank you. Well, we've covered quite a lot of savoury and we've got several things in the oven that are cooking away. So I did want to cover desserts as well. And behind me here, I have actually got something in the oven that some of you may have heard about. If you have a Smeg oven already, you might not have done. But Smeg is an Italian brand. We love a little bit of Italian heritage, especially when it comes to our cooking. So we actually have something in the bottom here. It's called the gourmet cooking stone or the pizza stone. And it's just sat in the bottom of the oven here. And it's absorbing the heat that's currently inside the oven. I've popped some grease-proof paper on it, but if you see that on the bottom there, it's a lovely terracotta colour. Now, this is made of refractory stone, so it's absorbing the heat. It holds the heat incredibly well. It's a beautiful product. And as I say, it goes in any Smeg oven or range cooker. This one here is 60 centimetres, but it also comes in a 90 centimetre as well. Absolutely huge, whether you're doing a pizza party or whether you've got things lined up all over your stone. Is a fantastic accessory within the oven.
My favourite part about the accessory is that you don't need to wash it up.
You know what? I think that is a really good point about it, actually. Explain why, Zara. It's the best bit.
Because it's made of refractory stone, it's going to absorb the heat, which essentially means it's going to reach a really, really high level. So anything that could be contaminationable, made that word up, but anything that you'd be worried about that needs to wash will actually be killed because the heat is going so high. If I were to put this delicate stone into water, it will absorb it, and then you may have problems such as cracking. So it doesn't need to. Just a damp cloth to wipe it down, give it a dust off, and it's absolutely fine, ready to go.
Yeah. And so, as I keep mentioning, this stone goes in any one of the Smeg ovens or range cookers. And we used to call it the pizza stone, but we've now changed the name to gourmet cooking stone because it can do so much more than just pizza. And we didn't think that the name pizza stone really did it justice, because also if you don't like pizza, then what? But we use it for so much. So, for example, we've got some really lovely mince pies here. I don't know if you can see how lovely and golden and crispy they are. It's a classic. When we're talking about Mary Berry mentioning the soggy bottom, it always happens when cooking pastry. It can struggle to cook through to the bottom. So you get a disappointing base with your pastry. It's a little bit anemic, a little bit limp. You can actually bake directly onto the bottom of the stone that we have here. We use metal dishes. So if you're doing something like a Boxing Day quiche or a flan or a tart of any kind, you actually don't have to blind bake, which is when you would put your raw pastry in. You often put in baking beans to keep it at low level. Cook it first, take it out, put your filling in, put it back in. You don't have to do any of that. All you have to do is pop your filling in and put it straight onto the stone, and it cooks from the bottom up.
Saves so much time.
So much time.
Everything's about time saving.
It is. And I mean, we were talking earlier, weren't we, about a Christmas focaccia?
Yes. Yeah, get the cranberries in there.
Ooh.
We made one the other day, actually, and it was absolutely delicious. So
it was. And I find a lot of the time when making focaccia, you get a gorgeous, crispy golden top. But because it's so dense, you can struggle to get that crisping on the bottom. So cooking it, again, directly onto the pizza stone, you will get that lovely absorption of heat. And again, if you wanted to, straight onto the baking trays. So if you have a smaller baking tray, for instance, or a metal dish, just pop it straight on. And I mentioned we did our mince pies in here today. I have some unusual looking things here. These are actually cookie dough balls. And I've got some that are already on the stone cooking away right now, but I'm going to put a few more on. I've laid down some parchment paper just to make sure they don't stick to the bottom. But I'm literally just going to pop these cookies directly onto the stone here. And that intensity of heat is going to cook those. And you get this beautiful crispy bottom with a lovely gooey melted inside. So it's perfect for a delicious chocolate chip cookie, which I know around Christmas we get so many visitors. I don't know about you, but I always have to have food ready to go. So it's a really nice option to get those beautiful results as if you had cooked them in a bakery.
And with the cookie dough, you can pre-make that and freeze it in the balls in your freezer, pop them in there, and it's done. Really,
Absolutely.
really handy. So yeah, we do love it.
Now, whilst those cook, I have arguably one of the most important Christmas desserts here, the Christmas pudding. Now, whether you bake it at home from scratch or you purchase from the supermarket, either way, it's the question of reheating. How do you prepare it for the big day? Now, with a rich fruit cake, they're obviously cooked low and slow for a long period of time, and often they can be quite dry. So the best way to reheat these or cook them is actually to steam them. So if you have the facility of a steam oven, as Zara was mentioning earlier, either with the built-in or our lovely little countertop, I've steamed this 2 hours, self-contained. You get no steam in the kitchen. It does its own thing, and it comes out really, really tender. The sultanas and the raisins, they're plump. Any dried fruit, instead of being dried out, it's rehydrated. So you get a much tastier result. Of course, you can also steam it on the hob top as well. But for us, being in the Smeg kitchen here, we've got all the gear. So we absolutely put this in the steam oven for the best results. And it makes serving a dream as well. as you can see, hopefully you can see, this is nice and steamy, really, really delicious. And the smell of that is just incredible. And as I say, those raisins and sultanas are looking so plump and delicious. So I know we've got a few team members who are really looking forward to this after the after the live is finished. So we're all looking forward to a little bit of a Christmas treat there. So if you are looking for a way to reheat or cook through your Christmas pudding, give steam a go, because there is just so much you can do with it, and the results are absolutely fantastic. Now, another tip when it comes to desserts, these are often gifted. Panettones, of course, we're an Italian brand, and panettones are an Italian dessert. A lot of the time I find that they go to waste in a lot of households because people don't necessarily know when to eat them, how to eat them. Sometimes you can have them, a bit like cake and coffee, but they are seemingly drier than necessarily what we're used to. So a really nice way of utilising leftover panettone is actually to slice it and use it in the classic way that we would. Really change the identity of the panettone and do it as a classic British bread and butter pudding. When it comes to panettone, it's already sliced. It's already got its raisins, its sultanas included. This one actually has chocolate chips. So if you don't necessarily want to have a raisin bread and butter pudding, or you perhaps have somebody in the family who doesn't like raisins, you can absolutely swap it out for a chocolate chip panettone. Simply pop this in your dish, pop your filling over the top and bake. And it's as simple as that. Pop it into a ceramic dish and you've got a really quick and easy dessert. So instead of having all these different components, because normally with bread and butter pudding, of course, you get your slices of bread, you butter them, pop them in your dish, add your raisins, add your spices into the mix, and it ends up becoming quite an ordeal with all the different ingredients that you need. Whereas with these, they're already seasoned, they're spiced, they've got plenty of butter inside. There's no need to butter them in addition to what they already have. So it just takes out another element of everything cooking wise. So a really nice option for a quick, simple dessert when it comes to Christmas time, because as you can see, we already have enough to think about. We don't need plenty of desserts to have to worry about as well. Those potatoes look delicious.
They
Sarah.
do, don't they? So the potatoes are done.
Wow.
Lovely and crisp, nice even sizes as well. They cooked really well using all those tips. We're just waiting on our Yorkshire puddings. And then here we have those really simple canapes that we spoke about earlier. So easy, I can't even explain how easy, but we've had so many questions on how we've made them, and everyone is so shocked to hear about it. And then again, you have those sausage rolls. One thing I didn't mention earlier is, I don't know if you noticed when I opened the combination microwave and when Alice opened the OmniChef here, there wasn't a turntable and there was metal inside the microwave. If any of you have any of these products at home, just to let you know, all of the internal of those microwaves is earth, so it's all safe to use. All you need to do is add this tray here. I wouldn't recommend at all adding any more metal, but it's completely safe. And we don't have a turntable because the precise temperature control works through the microwaves moving around the food as opposed to the food moving around the microwave. So the quality control and the temperature control is amazing. So that's why we're able to do something like microwave pastry.
And just before I let these go too far, we've got these delicious cookies that have been cooking away in here. So I'm going to slide these off the baking parchment. Wow. So really, really nice and easy. Just pop them straight on, and no washing up, because as Zara mentioned, of course, you don't have to wash the stone, but also we're cooking these straight onto the parchment. So you can actually just slide the parchment off and you've got some delicious cookies ready to go, hot out of the oven. I can't wait to try these.
They look so good.
And I'll let those last few cook out there as well. But hopefully you can see how beautiful and golden these are here. So a really lovely option. If you do have the pizza stone accessory, the gourmet baking stone, it's a great addition to any of the ovens.
How's your chicken getting on?
Right, so here we go. Well, she's looking lovely. So really nice and golden. That skin has crisped up beautifully. while you were over there, Zara, I did turn the chicken over to make sure that it got nice and crispy on the top, because of course, if you remember, we were only cooking this for 30 minutes, so very, very fast. But you can see that lovely golden top there. So even though it's only been in the oven for such a short amount of time, flipped over, so it should be really nice, tender, juicy. And of course, if we were doing a full turkey, I would have popped that bacon on the top, really crisped it up. And if you're cooking this at home with a Smeg oven, utilize that turbo function. Pop it on for the first 20 minutes of cooking and then switch it onto circular, as Zara mentioned, and you can put anything else in the oven that you like to utilize that capacity and to make sure that you don't get any cross transference of flavors or smells. So hopefully you found this really useful. We have loved it, and I'm sure we're going to continue loving it after we say goodbye to you, because we've got so much delicious food here. Thank you for your support, and thank you ever so much for watching. If you would like to hear more about these tips or to read our article, we've got a news article on our website, so you can follow step by step everything we've gone through in a little bit more detail if you wish. And of course, all of the recipes, please feel free to do so.
Shall I quickly see if I can grab those Yorkshire puddings out?
Well,
I don't know if they need slightly longer, but...
Have a look. It's the risk of opening the oven door, isn't it, while they're cooking? But we've got great lights on all of the ovens.
We can show them.
Okay, fantastic. Oh, wow. Oh my goodness, crikey, they look fantastic, Zara. Sorry, this is anticipation. Look at the size of these.
It's hard to show you on an angle, but they are quite big actually, and they actually need a bit longer, but I've taken them out now just to show you guys.
Wow.
But yeah, definitely take some of those tips on board.
They look amazing. And in terms of delivery, if you are watching this live, there is still guaranteed small appliance delivery by 5 p.m. tonight. So if you aren't watching live, please don't order yet if you want them in time for Christmas, but feel free, and you will receive them after Christmas. But please check out our website as well. There are links in the chat to everything that we've discussed. And I think on behalf of me, Zara, and all of the team, thank you ever so much. And we hope you found this really useful. And we hope to see you again in the new year.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Bye.